I thought I was doing everything right. Long hours, double shifts, missed birthdays, missed dinners, missed life, all for them, for her, for us. But I was wrong. So goddamn wrong. It started like any other Thursday. I was driving home after a brutal 14-hour shift at the plant. My hands were cracked. My back screamed. I was running on caffeine and spite. But I smiled, just thinking about seeing her. Thinking about how she'd light up when I walked in the door. That smile that used to make all the bullshit worth it. But that night she didn't smile. She didn't even look surprised. She looked guilty. I caught the tail end of something. A whisper. A laugh. A door creaking shut upstairs. My gut twisted. "Hey, babe," she said. Too quickly. Stepping out from the kitchen like she hadn't just been doing something behind my back. Something broke in me then. Not all the way. Not yet. But a crack. A fracture. The kind you ignore until the whole damn thing collapses. I told myself I was being paranoid. Overtired. Overworked. Seeing shadows in the light. But the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. She started staying up late, saying she couldn't sleep. But her phone always stayed close, like a lifeline. She started dressing up more for errands. Started locking her phone. Started laughing at jokes she never shared. And then there was him. My brother. Tyler. The golden boy. Always smiling, always charming. Always just a little too slick for his own good. I noticed it during Thanksgiving. The way he looked at her. The way she laughed at his stories like they were private jokes. The way their eyes met just a little too long across the table. But I pushed it down. Swallowed it. Because that's what you do when you're a man, right? You don't make a scene. You don't act jealous. You trust your wife. You trust your blood. You don't expect the two people you love most to betray you in the worst possible way. But they did. And I was the last one to know. That Thanksgiving dinner keeps replaying in my mind like a sick movie I can't turn off. The way Tyler walked in, bottle of wine in one hand, his signature smug grin plastered across his face. It should have been nothing. Just another holiday with family. But something about the way she looked at him that day. It gnawed at me. She wore that deep burgundy sweater I always loved. Said it was for me. But her eyes weren't on me when she smiled. They were on him. Across the table. Over mashed potatoes and gravy. Her laughter wasn't the usual soft giggle she saved for our private jokes. It was louder, freer. Like she was coming alive for the first time in weeks. Tyler always had that effect on people. He was the kind of guy who could make you feel like you were the only one in the room. And maybe I'd never noticed before how he used that charm. Maybe I never wanted to admit how easily people, especially women, got pulled into his orbit. We sat across from each other, the three of us, pretending to be a family. I carved the turkey. She served him pie. He poured her wine. And I watched them closely. Her fingers brushed his once when she passed the whipped cream. Too long. Too soft. I remember my fork freezing in mid-air. She didn't even flinch. After dinner, I stepped outside to smoke a cigarette. I don't even smoke. But I needed to breathe. The walls were closing in. When I came back in, the living room was empty. Plates half finished. Glasses still sweating on the table. I heard voices upstairs. Laughing. Then silence. A few seconds later, she came down alone. Said she was just showing him the new photo frames in the hallway. Said he was on the phone with a client. Said it so calmly, so easily. Like she'd rehearsed it. I wanted to believe her. I did. God, I wanted to believe her. Because the alternative, the image forming in my head, was too much. My own brother. My wife. My home. That was sacred. That was supposed to be untouchable. But the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, that was the first time I felt the foundation start to shake. Not crack, just tremble. The first tremor before the quake. She kissed me goodnight that evening. Light, distant. Her lips barely touched mine. And I remember lying there beside her, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I suddenly felt like a stranger in my own bed. Something had shifted. And deep down, I knew. I was losing her. But I had no idea I'd already lost her weeks ago. To him. To my own flesh and blood. The days that followed were slow poison. Everything looked the same on the surface. The coffee brewing in the mornings, the sound of her humming in the kitchen, the evening TV shows we barely watched together, but underneath everything had shifted. I started to notice the absence of things that once made us us. No more random texts during the day. No more lingering hugs when I got home. No more warmth in her eyes when we locked eyes across the room. There was a distance now, subtle but unmissable, like a cold draft seeping in through a crack in the window you can't find. I kept working like a madman, partly because we needed the money, mostly because I needed the distraction. The more I felt her slipping away, the more I buried myself in the job. I told myself I was providing. I told myself I was doing it for the family. But the truth is I was running. From the silence. From the look in her eyes. From the man I feared I was becoming, suspicious, bitter, afraid. Then came the night I found the shirt. It was a Tuesday. She said she was going to her sister's place to help with a baby shower. I got home early for once. One of the machines at the plant broke down and they sent us home while it got fixed. The house was quiet, her car gone. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe cook dinner for once. Something stupid and small to remind her we still had something worth saving. I went to grab a fresh shirt from our closet and that's when I saw it. A men's t-shirt crumpled near the back of the closet floor, hidden behind her suitcase. It wasn't mine. Wrong size. Wrong brand. It smelled faintly of cologne I didn't wear. My stomach dropped. At first, I told myself maybe it was just old. Maybe something Tyler left behind when he stayed over that one time last year. Maybe I was being paranoid again. But then I remembered she did laundry yesterday. Everything was clean. Everything except this shirt. This shirt that looked like it had been worn. Recently. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The scent, subtle, masculine, expensive, hit me like a slap. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the fabric like it was a grenade. A voice in my head screamed to confront her, to call her, to drive to wherever the hell she was and demand the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, clutching the shirt, swallowing my rage, drowning in the fear that I already knew whose it was. Tyler's. It had to be. And if it was, then everything I was afraid of, everything I had been trying to ignore for weeks, was real. The betrayal wasn't a fear anymore. It was a fact. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling while she snored softly beside me, the same peaceful rhythm she'd always had, as if nothing had changed. As if she hadn't let my brother into our home, into her arms, into our bed, maybe. My mind was a carousel of images I didn't want but couldn't shut off. Her fingers on him. His lips on her neck. Her breathless laugh, the one that used to be mine, now stolen, handed over to someone who shared my blood. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to be the guy going through his wife's phone while she slept. But I also didn't want to be a fool anymore. So at 3:42 a.m., with shaking hands and a stomach full of dread, I reached for her phone on the nightstand. It was locked, of course. She never used to lock it. That alone should have been the final nail. But I knew her. Her birthday. Her favorite numbers. I tried her mom's birthday first, nothing. Then her wedding date. Still nothing. Finally, I tried Tyler's birthday. It opened. My vision blurred for a second. I couldn't tell if it was from rage or heartbreak or both. The messages weren't obvious, they never are. No, I love yous. No nude photos. Just short coded texts. Thanks for last night, he wrote a week ago. I needed that. She replied with a heart. Another thread, be careful. He's getting suspicious. And then the one that really broke me, just 3 words. I miss you. She had never texted me that. Not once. Not even during my long hauls out of town when I'd work 3-day shifts to cover bills, sleeping in my truck between shifts, freezing my ass off in a damn parking lot. But Tyler, he gets the hearts. The softness. The ache of her missing him. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. My hands felt numb. The room seemed to spin, the walls pressing in. I wanted to wake her up. Shake her. Scream. Demand answers. But what would that change? The truth was already there. The betrayal laid out in glowing white text, pixel by pixel, like a knife pressed gently into my chest. I put the phone back and walked out of the room. Into the hallway. Into the kitchen. I stood in the dark, gripping the counter, trying to breathe, trying not to punch a hole in the wall. That was the moment I realized something important. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was an erasure. Every hour I'd worked. Every sacrifice I made. Every time I told myself we were building something real. It had all been for nothing. She hadn't just cheated on me. She had chosen someone else while I was breaking my back to build a life for us. And worse, she had chosen my brother. My goddamn brother. The days after that felt like I was watching my own life from outside my body, like a ghost haunting the shell of the man I used to be. I still woke up at 5 a.m. Still drank my burnt coffee, still kissed her goodbye before heading out the door. But the man doing all that was gone. I was just going through the motions, wearing my own skin like a disguise. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. That stung more than anything, how easy it was for her to pretend. To lie. To live this double life while I was breaking in slow motion. I kept checking her phone. Every night. Every time she showered. The messages became more careless, more bold. They weren't even trying to hide anymore. She deleted some threads, but not all. Maybe she thought I'd never look. Maybe she didn't care if I did. One message from Tyler stopped me cold. Does he suspect anything? Should I back off for a while? Her reply. No. He's clueless. He's too busy working his life away. That sentence. That one damn sentence. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was humiliated. I was the punchline of their secret joke. The fool in the story they told each other in whispers while wrapped in sheets that I'd probably paid for. I started watching them more closely. Every interaction. Every glance. Tyler came by the house more often now, under the guise of catching up or helping out with something. Fixing the fence. Dropping off tools. He'd slap me on the back like nothing had happened. Like he wasn't sneaking around behind me using my own wife like she was just another one of his toys. I wanted to hit him. God, I wanted to break every tooth in his smug mouth. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I needed to be sure. I needed something concrete, something undeniable. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I followed her. The next Friday, she said she was meeting her sister again. I waited 10 minutes after she left, then got in my truck and tailed her. My hands were slick on the wheel. My heart was pounding like I was about to commit a crime. And maybe spying on your own wife is a crime of desperation. But I had to know. She didn't go to her sister's. She didn't even head in that direction. She drove to a cheap motel on the edge of town. One of those places with the neon sign flickering like a bad omen, the kind of place where no one asks questions. I parked down the street. Waited. 10 minutes later, Tyler's car pulled in. I watched them. Watched him get out, knock on the door. Watched her open it, smiling like she used to smile at me. Watched her pull him inside without hesitation. The door closed. And with it, so did a chapter of my life. I sat there for hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I just watched the door and thought about every second, every sacrifice, every promise. All of it for nothing. The drive home from that motel felt longer than any route I'd ever taken, though it couldn't have been more than 15 minutes. But time warps when you're unraveling. The silence in the truck was suffocating. The kind of silence that drowns out every rational thought and amplifies every dark whisper in your head. I gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to this world. I didn't even play music. I just stared ahead, jaw clenched, wondering how the hell it all came to this. I pulled into the driveway and just sat there, staring at the house I'd bled for. The house I'd fixed up, board by board, pipe by pipe, during weekends and late nights. Every corner held a memory, painting the walls with her while she laughed and splattered me with blue. Hanging shelves she never used but said made it feel like a home. Even the porch light I rewired with my bare hands because she liked the warm glow it gave off when we had company. Now every inch of it felt poisoned. I didn't go inside right away. I needed to breathe. I needed to decide whether I was going to confront her tonight or wait. Part of me wanted to walk in and throw her phone across the wall. To demand answers. To scream until she saw the depth of what she'd done. But another part, the colder, quieter part, told me to hold back. That if I exploded, it would give her the power. She'd turn it around. Make me the villain. Say I was being irrational. That it wasn't what it looked like. I couldn't stomach her lies anymore. I needed evidence. Something undeniable. Something she couldn't spin. So I started planning. I installed a second phone line under her name. Set it to receive duplicates of her texts. I placed a cheap voice-activated recorder under the seat of her car. I hacked her email. I hated every second of it. Hated the person I was becoming. But I needed the truth. Not just for closure, for survival. Because if I didn't anchor myself in the truth, I was going to drown in rage. What I found over the next week ripped me apart. They had been meeting for over 3 months. At least twice a week. Sometimes at the motel. Sometimes in the back of Tyler's truck. Once, and this one nearly made me throw up in my own house, when I'd taken an extra shift at the plant to cover our credit card debt. The debt she ran up buying clothes she wore only for him. There were voice notes too. Her voice, breathy and laughing, saying things like, "He has no idea and I feel bad sometimes, but not enough to stop." Tyler's voice followed, arrogant, smug, calling me the mule, and worse, saying things like, let him work himself into the grave. We'll be living the good life. That was the moment it all crystallized. This wasn't just lust. This wasn't some moment of weakness. This was betrayal by design. Planned. Rehearsed. Savored. My brother, the man who stood next to me on my wedding day, had seduced my wife, then laughed behind my back as I broke my spine to keep them comfortable. It was no longer just about a broken marriage. It was war. I stopped speaking to her unless I absolutely had to. She noticed, of course. Asked what was wrong. Said I seemed distant. I stared at her then, not with anger, not with love, but with the kind of cold detachment you give a stranger who's wronged you so deeply you can't even find the words to curse them. I watched her try to play the role of the loving wife, watched her put dinner on the table and act like things were fine, like her lies weren't rotting the foundation of our home. The irony was unbearable. Here she was asking if I was okay while I had a folder of screenshots, transcripts, and voice recordings that could detonate her life in an instant. Every word, every sigh, every touch she gave to my brother, I had it. Cataloged. Organized. Dated. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about control. About knowing that for once I wasn't the fool in the dark. I held the truth now. And it gave me a strange kind of power. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Not yet. I flirted with the idea of mailing everything to her parents, good, church-going folks who adored me and thought she'd married the kind of man they'd always prayed for. I imagined the look on her mother's face, holding the proof of her daughter's betrayal. I imagined sending it to her job, where she liked to brag about her stable marriage. Even thought about handing it all to Tyler's fiancée. Yes, he had won, the poor girl he was stringing along while he played house with my wife. But that wasn't me. At least, not yet. I needed one more thing before I acted. I needed to look them both in the eye together and see if they'd still lie. Still smile. Still pretend that nothing was happening. Because if they could, then I'd know I was dealing with people so hollow, so morally bankrupt that no confrontation could fix it. And if there was even the smallest flicker of shame, I wanted to see it up close, wanted it to burn them from the inside. So I set it up. The following Sunday, I invited Tyler over for a barbecue, just the three of us, like old times. She lit up when I told her, too quickly, like she was trying not to seem too eager. Said it was a great idea, that we needed to reconnect. I nodded and smiled and kissed her forehead, tasting the sour irony of her affection. When Tyler arrived, all fake charm and grins, I almost lost it. But I held steady. We drank beer. We grilled burgers. We laughed like old friends. And I watched them. Every stolen glance. Every quick smile. Every time their hands brushed a little too casually. They thought they were clever. Thought I was still that tired, oblivious fool too focused on work to notice what was right in front of him. And when we sat around the fire pit later that night, the flames crackling, the air thick with smoke and lies, I looked at them both and asked a simple question. So how long have you two been fucking? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move. I just stared at them while the words hung in the air like an executioner's axe. She froze. Eyes wide. Color drained from her face. Tyler choked on his beer. And in that stillness, in that 3 seconds of silence before the world shattered, I saw it, not guilt. Not remorse. Fear. The silence after my question was deafening. It stretched on, heavy and suffocating, as the fire cracked and spit between us, throwing shadows across their stunned faces. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. Her lips trembled. Tyler's hands fumbled with the beer bottle, his knuckles white, jaw locked like he was bracing for a punch. Good. He should have been. She started, her voice barely a whisper. It's not a. Don't, I cut her off, flat and cold. Don't insult me with lies. Not after everything. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. I'd seen enough fake tears to last me a lifetime. She reached out as if touching me would somehow soften what she'd done, but I pulled back. Her touch felt radioactive now. Tyler stood up suddenly, puffing his chest like he always did when cornered. It just happened, man. It wasn't planned. I laughed then, short and sharp and humorless. 3 months of motels and secret texts. That's not something that just happens, Tyler. That's commitment. He had no answer for that. None that mattered. She tried again, voice cracking. You were never home. You were always working. I was lonely and he was there, and you decided to sleep with my brother. I finished for her. You didn't come to me. You didn't try to fix anything. You just gave up. And you gave him what was supposed to be mine. She started sobbing then, full on shaking, as if her tears could somehow rewrite the last 3 months. Tyler stood there looking lost, like he expected me to fight him, to swing. Maybe he even wanted it, something to justify what he'd done. But I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. I didn't need to lay a hand on him to ruin him. I stood up slowly, walked inside, and returned with the folder, printed messages, photos, audio transcripts. I dropped it on the table between them like a judge handing down a sentence. In case either of you forgets what honesty looks like. She reached for it, hands trembling. He didn't move. I want you both gone, I said quietly. Tonight. Out of this house. Out of my life. Tyler scoffed. It's not your house, man. It's family. No, I snapped, fire rising finally. You killed the family the moment you crossed the line. You're not my brother. You're a parasite. And I looked at her, the woman I once built a future around, she's just the empty shell of someone I used to love. The look in her eyes, that was the real punishment. Not rage. Not defiance. Just pure devastation. Because she finally understood there was no coming back from this. No apology strong enough. No excuse good enough. I turned my back on them, walked into the house, and locked the door. From the window, I watched them stand in the driveway, arguing, accusing, blaming each other like the cowards they were. Eventually, she got into her car and sped off. Tyler followed. And just like that, they were gone. The silence that followed was deeper than any I'd ever known. But it wasn't empty. It was cleansing. The first few days after they left were surreal. The house echoed differently, too quiet, too clean, too still. Her perfume still lingered on the pillowcases. Her hairbrush sat untouched on the bathroom counter. But it all felt like remnants from another life, like artifacts from a museum exhibit dedicated to a man who no longer existed. I didn't throw her things out right away. I wasn't ready. I needed to face them piece by piece. I needed to see every fragment of the life she destroyed and let it burn its image into me. Friends started calling, texting. Some had heard something. Small-town gossip travels fast. I ignored most of it. What could they say that wouldn't sound like pity? My own brother and my wife. There wasn't a word in any language that could make that feel lighter. Eventually, I answered one call, my mother's. She'd heard it from someone at church. Said she didn't believe it at first. Then she started crying, blaming herself, asking what she'd done wrong raising us. I told her it wasn't her fault. That some people just rot from the inside out and no one sees it coming until it's too late. Tyler didn't reach out. Not once. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. I imagined he was lying low, hoping the storm would pass. Maybe thinking time would mend things, that blood would outweigh betrayal. But he was wrong. There's no bond strong enough to survive what he did. And as for her, she tried. Sent texts at first. Called. Left voicemails, sobbing, begging to talk. Said she made a mistake. Said she didn't know what she was thinking. That she missed me. That she was sorry. I never replied. The last message she sent was simple, I ruined everything. Please, can we talk? I didn't delete it. I wanted to remember. I wanted a permanent reminder of what it looks like when a liar finally tastes the bitterness of their own choices. In the weeks that followed, I started putting my life back together. Slowly. Painfully. I picked up more shifts, not because I needed the money, but because I needed something to fill the hours. I repainted the bedroom. Threw out the bedsheets. Bought new furniture. Not out of spite, out of necessity. I needed a space that didn't reek of memories. I also started therapy, something I never thought I'd do. But talking helped. More than I expected. The therapist didn't judge. Just listened. Let me say things I hadn't dared say out loud about the shame, the humiliation, the rage. The hollow ache of realizing that love can be so easily faked. And slowly, I began to understand something painful but important. What they did said everything about them and nothing about me. I had given my all. I had loved deeply, worked tirelessly, sacrificed constantly. And still, I was betrayed. Not because I wasn't enough, but because they weren't. They were the ones who were empty. They were the ones who didn't know how to love without taking. And when there was nothing left to take, they turned on me. But they didn't break me. They just revealed who they really were. And who I really was too. It's been over a year now. People say time heals all wounds, that's a lie. Some wounds don't heal. They scar. They stay with you. But they stop bleeding. The pain dulls. It fades from a roar to a hum. You learn to live around it, to stop poking it like a bruise. You don't forget, but you learn how to breathe again without the weight of betrayal crushing your lungs. I sold the house. I couldn't stand the walls anymore. Couldn't walk past the kitchen without hearing her laugh. Couldn't use the shower without seeing ghosts. I bought a small place on the edge of town, nothing fancy, just quiet. Clean. Mine. Every nail, every chair, every photo on the wall has no history attached. No shadows. It's a blank slate, and that's all I wanted. I heard Tyler moved 2 towns over. Tried to open a car shop. Word is, it's not going well. People talk. People remember. Some betrayals stain your name like oil on concrete. No amount of charm can scrub it away. As for her, she's still around. Saw her once at the grocery store. She looked thinner. Tired. She spotted me, froze, and then turned down the next aisle like a coward. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. She lost the right to my gaze the moment she chose him. There's something satisfying in living well after betrayal. Not revenge, not some petty attempt to win, but peace. Real, quiet peace. I started working with my hands again. Woodworking. Something about shaping something raw, something broken, into something beautiful, it spoke to me. Maybe that's the metaphor of it all. You get torn down, splintered. But with patience and work and care, you can rebuild. You can reshape. I dated again. Carefully. Slowly. I didn't rush to fill the void. I had to learn how to be alone first, truly alone, without feeling like I was missing something. I needed to become whole again by myself. And I did. Eventually, I met someone. She knows my story. All of it. And she stayed. Not because she wanted to fix me, but because she saw me, the real me, under the scar tissue. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Safe. Real. Sometimes at night, when the world is quiet and the wind brushes the trees outside, I remember that man I used to be: tired, loyal, blind. I feel for him. I mourn him. But I don't want to be him again. I'm stronger now. Not harder, just wiser. I learned the difference between sacrifice and self-destruction. Between loyalty and self-betrayal. Between love and dependence. And if you're reading this, if someone has torn your world apart the way mine was, know this. You will survive. You will rebuild. And one day you'll look back and realize that the betrayal didn't break you. It revealed you. And in the ashes of what they destroyed, you'll find something you never expected to see again. Yourself.